Welcome in, everyone. We're going to be starting here in a moment. I'm just sending out the link in the Discord and also on X, and then we will officially begin here momentarily. I'm just giving it a little bit of time just so that everyone can pop in here. I typically give it roughly about like 3 minutes. So at the 3-minute mark, we will officially begin. Welcome in, Gear. We have a question to start things off. Why did HBAR dump so hard today? It's mainly because we're starting to see the pullback officially begin on Bitcoin, which is exactly what we wanted to see anyways. I mean, it's not just HBAR, it's pretty much everything. So, and every single altcoin was at the higher time frame resistance anyway. So it's all just like, a slight little pullback, but it's only 2%. So it's not like a huge drop or anything significant just yet. But yeah. All right. We are going to officially kick things off. Let me switch the scene 1 second. All right. Welcome in, everyone. All right, so overall, market still looking pretty good. We're finally getting the price action that we wanted to see on Bitcoin, which we'll talk about here momentarily. But the overall market, in terms of the market cap, still sitting just under $4 trillion. Altcoin season still around 50 out of 100, which is great to see. A lot of people are calling that alt season is officially here. It's officially started. I think that we're being a little bit too impulsive on that call. I do think that we're getting into phase 2 of the cycle, which is the Ethereum side. Alt season still has a little bit of time away to actually begin, but overall we are seeing some nice price action across the board, especially over the last 7 days. We have some altcoins that are up 50+%, 100%, and some of them are outliers. Like Conflux, for an example, will be an outlier. It's one that's been moving pretty solid, but it just depends on what the chart looks like and how much volume is actually flowing into some of these altcoins. But CFX was for the longest time very boring, and I think that we could learn something from this, right? This was a very boring chart. It still is pretty boring compared to its previous all-time highs, but the 1 year looks absolutely beautiful. And this is because we were in a massive downtrend that we officially broke over, and we started to just push above the trend and break out. The thing that's crazy about this, though, is that everyone was celebrating this, but it was just getting close to these macro highs, aka the December highs. XRP is also a perfect example of this, right? Recently, everyone was celebrating XRP jumping out. It broke out from the downtrend. It actually broke over those macro highs. So a lot of altcoins are kind of doing the same thing. In terms of, where other altcoins are currently, like, for example, HBAR. I'm just going to use HBAR as an example because we just got asked about it. With HBAR, we're still in that same sort of price action range. The problem is that we're hitting the February and March price action highs where we are getting met with major resistance. So again, most altcoins are in the same exact situation. I see from Gear, he's saying that HBAR dropped on its own. HBAR is not the only one dropping. In fact, what's crazy about this is if we look at the last 24 hours, there's actually a lot of altcoins that are down much more than HBAR. HBAR is not an outlier here at all in terms of a major drop. So again, it's very easy and it's very common to just focus on an altcoin that you are holding. Maybe you hold more HBAR than others, so you only see HBAR, but it's actually the entire altcoin market that dropped today. But let me see. There's a few other questions. It was pumping up and steadily climbing, then dropped quickly out of nowhere. It didn't. I mean, almost every altcoin today dropped. We could actually see that on the 24-hour span. There's only a few that are still kind of green, and it's by practically like, it's not even a percentage point. Some of them are percentages, but outside of that, the entire market got hit. And also, yes, stocks today also sold off. It's Monday. It's the start of the week, so we are going to see price action fluctuate quite a bit. Do you still have MBD? I still hold MBD. I haven't sold a single one, actually. You should be doing more lives. I'm going to be doing lives on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So this schedule is the consistent schedule that I'm going to stick with. I'm going to be live streaming for an hour on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every single week. So you could dial in on those live streams. What do you think about Origin Trail pumping? So Track is one of those projects. It's in the AI side. A lot of people actually have been overlooking Track. I thought it was in the, oh, there it is. Okay. So a lot of people have been overlooking this project. What's crazy about Track, this is something that I've been saying even in the Discord. I made a video on Origin Trail as well. If you go to their website, and I just want to go over this real quick for everyone out there that maybe you don't know about Track, maybe you haven't done research on it or anything like that. Their solutions are actual, like, real world solutions, and they are utilizing AI. And they're using AI in a lot of areas. We can actually see just the solutions overview. If you really wanted to do a lot of research on this, you guys are more than welcome to. But if we look at the names that they're actually working with, they are working with actual government names. They're working with major banks, institutional players. We could even see like Oracle on here, Walmart, Nvidia. And it's not just like hype and, you know, crazy names that they just toss onto their website. No, these are actual players that are utilizing the, you know, actual technology here. So when we think about Origin Trail, this is probably one of the only few AI based projects that are actually doing something with AI. And it's not just the fact that, oh, they saw AI was, you know, being hyped up and it's a huge narrative in 2024, 2025. So we need to just jump on this. No, they've actually been building AI solutions ever since inception, going all the way back to like 2018. So Origin Trail is one of those projects that, you know, a lot of people actually don't pay attention to. But if we look at their ecosystem, this ecosystem is absolutely stacked. So when it comes into, you know, the question of what AI based project actually has real world application value tied to it, Track is probably like one of the very few that I would say has that, you know, value tied to it. But also the fact that if we look on the 1 year, why is Origin Trail jumping out? It's doing exactly what every single altcoin has been doing, which is breaking out of that downtrend, retesting the higher time frame resistance. We have yet to actually fully break out. This is one of those projects that I would say is very good to average into, maybe even add to the portfolio, considering the fact that the price action is back to those levels back in October before we ran to like $1.20. So this is definitely a prime chart. I think everyone should be paying attention to this chart as well. And I do think that the AI side of the market will wake up yet again once we start to see the hype return to it. But overall, this is what the hourly looks like. This is what the daily looks like as well. So if you are getting a little bit concerned about your altcoin selling off today, or maybe your altcoin is down, I just want you guys to understand that today's not like a sea of green. There's still a lot of you know, drops across the board for altcoins, but also this is what the hourly looks like, which is a sea of red. And this is simply because Bitcoin is selling off a little bit. Ethereum is also selling off, which you know, when we think about that, that's exactly what we wanted to see anyways. And just for reference, this is what the Bitcoin chart looks like currently. Again, I've been talking about it for the last, I want to say like the last week, maybe even the last 2 weeks. I've been talking about this gap here that we want to see retest it on Bitcoin, and that's around like 112 to 115.7K. I do think that this is going to be retested. I do believe that this is going to be swept, and this is mainly just retesting the May highs. So we don't want to lose 112K here on Bitcoin on this move. We'll probably continue to sell off a little bit and chop into this level. We'll build a floor around this level, and then we'll start to have that upward push above 120K again, which will also lead us to 130K plus on Bitcoin. But, you know, during this time, you know, utilize this as pretty much like the last launch pad on altcoins to get in on, because from this point on, you know, I don't think anyone is really expecting what happens after this, which is, you know, we are in phase 2 currently. After that, you know, we see altcoins just steal the show. So I think right now, any sort of major pullback that we get, any significant sell-off on Bitcoin that we get, you're probably going to want to utilize that time efficiently. So, you know, pick out a few altcoins that have barely moved, maybe some altcoins that are extremely oversold. I think track is definitely one of them that I think everyone should be focused on. Even if we look at, let me zoom out real quick. Let's go back to about roughly like 2023. This is what the chart looks like. Again, we're still at levels that we've seen since going like all the way back to 2023. So, this chart is not like extremely pumped up. We're not, buying any significant highs. I think that this is definitely one of those projects that people should be looking at. Axelar is also another great project that everyone should be looking at, especially if you hold XRP. I mean, it's a crucial piece to the EVM sidechain. So there's some great opportunities out there. And if we do get this deeper pullback on Bitcoin, well, then guess what? We will see, some very, very, bullish overall levels being targeted on the lows. And I know that that kind of sounds crazy to say because, there'll be bullish levels on the lows, but it's bullish for us that are averaging in and buying for the next big wave. But outside of Bitcoin, when we think about Bitcoin dominance, this is like the chart that almost everyone focuses on for alt season to officially begin. I appreciate the $10 super chat from DeFi Dungeon. Love your content, Nick. Keep up the great work. I appreciate that. Thank you for the $10. And thank you for the support as well. But if we think about Bitcoin dominance, right? Everyone thinks about this as a measurement for alt season to officially begin. And over time, yeah, it's definitely been a thing to really watch, especially if you hold altcoins. But a lot of people overlook the Bitcoin dominance and the Ethereum dominance chart as well. And when we add this to the chart, this is what we have currently on this chart. We are in still an uptrend here. We're just kind of chopping, and yeah, we're starting to see a sell-off from the higher time frame resistance trend line. So this is all where we started to see a big move to the downside. Even back in October into November and December, we started to see that sell-off, which is why altcoins really kind of took off. And even right now, we're starting to see the same exact thing. But the problem here, and the biggest thing to actually focus on, okay, is we still need this to lose its lows. I'm looking for, and this is on like the 3-week, we're looking for a 3-weekly candle close below these lows here to create a lower low structure. This would be a bearish structure on Bitcoin dominance as well as Ethereum dominance, which means altcoins are starting to pump. Altcoins are starting to gain a lot of strength against Bitcoin and against even Ethereum. This is when we officially can say alt season is here. Right now, if we're getting pretty excited about alt season and altcoins are jumping, I want you guys to realize that this is just the beginning. This is why I said like no one is expecting what happens after this, because altcoins going up 100 to 200 to even 300% in a single day becomes a very common thing in the middle of alt season. This is when we start to see like everything going crazy and people say like, why is this pumping? Why is this going insane? Well, it's exactly what happened back in 2021. It happened in 2017, 2018. Nobody expects it until it actually happens. I still remember back in 2020 into 2021, it's crazy because if we look at Bitcoin dominance, this is actually very interesting, right? Let's go back to 2020 into 2021. And even if we look at the Bitcoin dominance and the Ethereum dominance chart as well, and we actually go back to that same time frame, right? Like this is all the way into December of 2020. During this time on both of these charts, everyone was saying altcoins are dead. We're never going to see a 2017, 2018 like run. Alt season is a thing of the past. It's all about Bitcoin. It's all about Ethereum. And then guess what ended up happening? They just fell right through the floor. Same with even Bitcoin dominance. I bring this up because we're starting to see that narrative getting floated around again this time around, where everyone's like, all right, well, altcoins are not even, a thing to focus on. It's all about Bitcoin. ETFs around Bitcoin are the big thing. Institutional adoption around Bitcoin is the big thing. We're constantly being shilled Bitcoin, 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 or even Ethereum. And I get it, right? Ethereum's, phase 2 is beginning. So the focus is definitely going to be on Ethereum at this point. But it's crazy that every single cycle, it doesn't change. The narratives remain the same. The ideas around what's happening and why you shouldn't be focused on altcoins still remains the same. This is why I keep telling everyone, focus on how the cycle works. Everyone's calling this cycle completely different. They're saying, oh, we have all of these things changing. This cycle is completely different. This is the last major legitimate 4-year cycle that we will follow. After this cycle, everything changes. And I agree on that. The problem is that everyone thinks that everything changed this moment, so that we don't even have to follow the 4-year cycle. We're not going to follow the 4-year cycle. We're just going to continue to go up and up and up and up. And that is a very dangerous mindset to have. I do agree on the idea of if we buy legitimate crypto projects that have real world application value tied to them, that we could just buy and hold them forever and we don't have to worry about it. I agree with that. I do think that some of these altcoins like XRP, for example, or even HBAR, long term will just continue to go up. And that's because of the value tied back to them and the real world application side as well. But I do think that this is probably going to be the last major crypto. And I mean, when I say like the last major crypto cycle, I mean the degenerate side of crypto cycle, right? Where like we see insane gains and, you know, volatility at like all-time highs. This will probably be the last, you know, typical 4-year cycle. After this, we'll probably be ushering into the utility side of the market where we start to see real world application. We start to see integration of stablecoins within the US government and the financial system. And that's when everything really starts to change. That's where we start to see trillions of dollars flowing over these networks. That's where we start to see, you know, the real value hit these altcoins. That's where we also see the real value of these altcoins show as well. Because right now, almost all of this is still tied back to Bitcoin or even Ethereum. Because again, we're still in that 4-year cycle of crypto where it's all based on liquidity and it's all based on how much hype and speculation there is around Bitcoin and around these altcoins. I'm excited for the day that we don't have to worry about Bitcoin and we don't have to worry about Ethereum. We don't even have to worry about the phases of the cycle. We're just worried about, you know, what name is using XRP to move X amount of dollars per year, or, you know, what is Hedera, you know, doing with this company or that company. That's where I do expect us to go after this cycle. But I think a lot of people are very preemptive about, you know, calling, you know, this cycle is so different. It's so different. We heard this for the last 2 cycles. And guess what? It ended up not being different at all. And trust me, I'm sure it's going to be like the boy who cried wolf theory where, you know, somebody will say this year is different. Nobody will believe it. And all of a sudden, guess what? It's different. But I just don't think that it's this cycle yet, because again, everything is playing out perfectly in the sense of the 4-year cycle anyways. But outside of this, you know, talking about Altseason, Cointelegraph recently put out an article, and it was actually 16 hours ago. And by the way, I'm not ignoring the chat. I'm going to, you know, address the chat here in a moment. I just want to go over a few things before I really, you know, go into the chat. But here we have Altseason is here. 5 things to know in Bitcoin this week. So all of the media companies around crypto are now calling Altseason and saying that it's here. But again, you know, we heard this even back in November into December as well, right? And don't get me wrong, like we witnessed a lot of gains during that time for altcoins, but the problem is that, you know, look at the Bitcoin dominance chart. Everyone was calling Altseason here, but Bitcoin dominance continued to jump and actually create higher highs. We can't be too impulsive on this. We can't just say Altseason's here because of this and that. We are still focused on the Bitcoin dominance and the Ethereum dominance chart. This is probably one of the most important charts to actually focus on. But we will continue to see a lot of people say that, you know, Altseason is here. And it's simply because we're starting to see, you know, some pretty significant moves around, you know, altcoins and around the, you know, things that we need to be focused on for Altseason to officially show up. The signals are there, but the signals are telling us that Altseason is not here yet, but it will be momentarily. And I think that the biggest thing to actually focus on here is that, yes, there's a few outliers here. XRP is a great example of this. XRP has created all-time highs compared to the December highs. And if you're really kind of going off of, you know, some of these price action levels from 2018, yeah, XRP already broke out. But the issue is that everyone is saying all-time highs simply because of the $3.84 level being a glitch that nobody was able to buy or sell or trade XRP at. I really don't think that we're going to see that huge market reaction on XRP that everyone wants until we actually clear that level, though. I know that everyone hates to hear that because even the XRP maxis in this space, which again, I'm not an extreme XRP maxi, but I definitely believe in XRP, especially the long-term, view of XRP. I just think that we need to break this $3.84 level before we really see that volatility pick up for XRP. And we have a new all-time high recorded on CMC. But I do agree with the idea that $3.84 was never actually bought, sold, or traded at because we never actually got a chance to. It was basically a glitch on a Korean exchange, but we still need to acknowledge that. But the reason why I bring up XRP is because although we're not yet in alt season just yet, right? We still need to acknowledge the fact that, we are starting to see some strength in altcoins. But if we're very bullish right now about altcoins, think about how crazy it's going to look when we're officially in phase 3. Because just like I said with Ethereum, this is what the Ethereum chart looks like. If we get that deeper sell-off on Bitcoin, we will definitely see this level around like 3,300 tapped on Ethereum. But we are going to break over this $4,100 level. This is that major higher time frame resistance. When Ethereum officially breaks out and goes to retest the 2021 all-time highs, because again, from that $4,100 level to a new all-time high, we're talking about a change of like 18, almost 19%. The craziest thing about this is that when Ethereum goes into price discovery, and we saw this even back in 2021. By the way, huge $10 super chat from Bazinga. We have Big Nick Energy. What's good, my boy? I'm locked in and my bags are packed for the projects I hold. In your opinion, in 3 to 5 projects, a good amount to be focused on, and what 5 can you recommend? Love from Cali. Hey, I appreciate that $10 super chat. I mean, ultimately speaking, listen, 3 to 5 projects is a solid overall amount of diversification. You always want to be diversified because, like I said, there's going to be a lot of outliers. Certain altcoins are going to move at a time where others are probably just sitting and being pretty boring. But 3 to 5 projects, I would say pick about like 3 legitimate utility-based projects and then pick like 2 projects that, could be pretty big, but maybe you're not like fully confident about. So I would say like HBAR, XRP is always great to have in there. XDC is also pretty solid. Then I would add in like Axeler and maybe even Track. That way you have, a project that's enabling XRP and the XRPL, but then you also have an AI-based play as well. But yeah, I would say, pick 3 legitimate projects that you're very confident about, and then pick like 2 outliers that could be, extremely big. Maybe they're like mid cap or even low cap altcoins. But I appreciate the $10 and I appreciate the support as well. But I want to go back to the time where Ethereum really kind of broke out. So just for reference, this was the 2017-2018 all-time high. The second that we broke out, this was in the beginning of January of 2021. We officially didn't see the largest moves of altcoins until we witnessed Ethereum go into price discovery. During January of 2021 was the official kickoff of Altseason. During this time is when we started to witness the largest moves across the board. The same is going to be said here. We are still under those 2021 all-time highs. So everyone's getting excited about altcoins right now. They're trying to call when altcoins are going to top out. I even saw a few posts on X about how like we should be, concerned about XRP because XRP already, had this major move in the market. But this is at a time where Ethereum is still trading, 20+% under its all-time highs from 2021. We have yet to actually even hit price discovery. Like, why would we be so concerned about altcoins topping out when we have yet to actually see Ethereum break out? It makes absolutely no sense. But that's why we need to be focused on the phases of the cycle because we are ushering in to the Ethereum phase of the market. And from this point on, we will start to see altcoins breaking out. Altcoins will be starting to really show a lot of strength. So it's crazy that we're starting to see people saying, all right, altcoins are going to get close to their top here soon. We should probably be, getting concerned or this, that. We're only in phase 2. We have a lot more time to go on altcoins. But talking about Ethereum, I also witnessed the Ethereum spot ETFs have $2.2 billion in inflows last week. That's the largest inflow on record by more than double. This is why I'm so confident in calling this phase 2. Because even if we look back on CoinMarketCap, okay, the last 7 days, Ethereum is up 26%, while Bitcoin is actually down 1.63%. The volume, the 24-hour volume on Ethereum compared to Bitcoin is now rallying against it. And if we actually look at the filters here, or the columns, let me actually add the column here. So I want to go, over the 7-day and the 30-day volume, because it's crazy to me that nobody's actually paying attention to how big Ethereum is actually becoming here. They're not really focused on it. They're still focused on what, Bitcoin's doing and how Bitcoin's performing. Ethereum in the last 7 days had over $270 billion tied to trading volume. In the last 30 days, it had $1.4 trillion. This is roughly $400 billion less than Bitcoin. Meanwhile, Ethereum's market cap is $454 billion roughly, compared to Bitcoin's $2.3 trillion. Like I said, people are not prepared for what's about to hit. When Ethereum actually breaks out, the ETF inflows are going to be insane. What we heard all during 2024, even 2025 is, Ethereum ETFs have barely been successful. They haven't really done anything for Ethereum. They haven't been that big. Yeah, guess what? That's because we were stuck in phase 1. When Ethereum starts to break over its all-time highs and go into price discovery, it's going to be insane to watch, because what we will see is the ETFs challenge Bitcoin ETFs. We will see Ethereum focus at all-time highs, and that's when we look at altcoins in a much larger light, because it's going to be the same story here. Everyone's going to be focused on Ethereum like they were focused on Bitcoin, at a time where you should be focused on altcoins like we should have been focused on Ethereum when everyone was focused on Bitcoin. But let me check out the chat real quick, because I do have a few charts that I want to go over, and we are coming up on the halfway point of the stream. So let me just check out what we do have in the chat. There is a few questions here, few altcoins that were up. We're going to experience our very first alt season. Hey, that's great to see. For anyone that is new here with alt season and stuff like that, I want you guys to understand that it does get very, very crazy. So, definitely just be prepared for volatility and be prepared for the crazy moves. We have from Miguel, interest rates need to drop in my opinion, so at least September for alt season. I don't think that we need interest rates to drop for alt season to officially kick off. There's this sort of correlation that a lot of people really kind of put on interest rates and alt season. They put a lot of weight behind it, but we really don't need that. But interest rates definitely add a lot of fuel to the fire, because it opens up liquidity. So, September is definitely prime time for interest rates, which will definitely make this alt season much bigger, because it unlocks so much more liquidity for the markets. It unlocks easy money, because lower interest rates means a lot of people want to go out and borrow money. They want to buy properties. They want to get into loans. So it definitely does unlock a lot more liquidity. It opens up the markets to pump even higher. So that's definitely something to focus on. But I don't think that we need to see interest rates in order for alt season to officially kick off. Are we going to really see such crazy pumps since the amount of coins we have this time? Again, that was also a narrative back in 2021. I still believe that we see some of the craziest moves that we've ever seen in history around crypto this cycle, especially with everything that's happening with institutional adoption, things like that. Let me see. Now, this is the last Bitcoin season cycle. I still think that Bitcoin's going to be around. I just don't think that it's going to be that lucrative as an investment vehicle. I mean, even this time around, Bitcoin went from like what, $15,000 to 120K. Even at 150K, that's a 10x. I mean, don't get me wrong, a 10x is great to see, but some of these altcoins, they could go up as high as like 20 plus X, even more. I mean, some altcoins have hit 30 to 50X returns in previous cycles. And, with Bitcoin, you do have diminished returns. That's like the big thing that Bitcoin maxis actually don't tell you, is that like Bitcoin returns will diminish greatly over time. We got a $2.80 Canadian dollar donation from Robert Russell. Your opinion on ZBCN? I think it will be amazing. I've been hearing a lot about it. The only thing that I don't like, okay, and we're going to go and look at it real quick. So the only thing that I don't like about this project is the supply ratio, because everyone's saying, oh, well, the supply is the same as XRP. It could be this, cycle's XRP. It's already up, a big amount. If we actually look at it, I mean, this is what the old time chart looks like. This is, what we're looking at. But everyone's starting to call this like the next XRP. Everyone's extremely bullish on it. I just don't like these large supply altcoins that have not been fully, like with XRP. I mean, XRP's history is minted in crypto history forever, right? XRP has been around forever. There's a lot of utility tied to it. Even with like Telcoin also has very similar supply. I just have been focused more on like lower cap altcoins at this point, because I have so many altcoins that are at like 50 billion or even 100 billion supply. But, I know that a lot of people have been pretty bullish on this project. I haven't done enough research to give you my full-on answer. But the only thing that I don't like is just the supply metrics. I know that there's like treasuries and things like that around ZBEC, but I'll have to do a lot more research on it to give you a full-on answer. And I just feel like I'm doing, I feel like I'm doing any holder of ZBCN a disservice by just saying, oh, I don't like it because of this, and that's it. I have yet to do enough research, so I'll have to look into it a little bit more and give you guys my full-on answer. But I just need to find the time to actually, tap into the project and look over it. Are you still bullish on Telcoin? It is up almost 80% on the month. Yeah, I still hold. I have not sold a single Telcoin at all this cycle. Yeah, I mean, Uphold has been airdropping XRP holders for a very long time. So, I don't know. Maybe they are trying to tell us something. I would have to look more into it for sure, but we'll see. We'll definitely see. Let me see. XDC. Why isn't XDC on Coinbase? I think that we'll eventually have XDC list on some pretty top tier exchanges, especially once they start to break out. Like, this was the same thing, like, believe it or not, right? DAG, Constellation, this project wasn't listed on pretty much any exchanges up until the point where we witnessed that massive run up back in 2021. I've noticed this with every single alt season. Every single altcoin that's very boring, that these exchanges don't care about, they suddenly jump on the ship once the ship has sailed. And you know why? Because these centralized exchanges in crypto are so greedy, they know that people are going to FOMO in, so they want to make a ton of money off of the fees. So you'll see a lot of these altcoins listed near like the top of the cycle. And it's sad to see that, because again, like, we would love to get access to a lot of these altcoins in a much easier way than like sending money to another exchange or using a DEX or something like that. But these exchanges are extremely greedy in this space. It's just ridiculous to me. We have a $3 Australian dollar donation as well from Shaw Hake. I hope that I'm saying that name correctly. Love your content, mate. Thanks. Hey, I appreciate the donation and I appreciate the support. Are you still bullish on Casper for this bull run? Yeah, I have yet to change my thesis on Casper. In fact, I'm actually a little bit more bullish on Casper this season, simply because of the change in leadership. And they have been making, you know, a lot of noise lately with some of the partnerships and the moves that they've been making. Hey Nick, miss you doing live streams. Did you see that Swift dropped 15% in transactions? It doesn't surprise me at all, actually. You know, I think that over time, we're probably going to see a lot of this old age technology kind of get phased out. And, you know, the biggest thing about Swift is that for years, what we heard about Swift is that, oh, they have 11,000 financial institutions tied to their network. So that there's no way that they could die, right? They're too big to die. We've heard this so many times over, right? Like, how many times have you heard, no, they're too big to fail. They're too big to fail just for them to just go belly up. The same goes with Swift, right? I think that we will see the exact same thing as well. Some people say XRP ETFs will outperform XRP coin. You think that's even possible? Even if the stablecoin is picked up as a CBDC central bank digital currency, will XRP go parabolic? So there's a few things to unpack with that question. Number one, XRP ETFs outperforming the coin. XRP ETFs, if they are spot ETFs, they impact the demand around XRP, which means XRP will also go parabolic if the XRP ETFs are going crazy. If they're the future ETFs, then they won't really make an impact on XRP at all. But again, who cares about the futures ETFs, right? Outside of that, the stablecoin. All right, stablecoins and CBDCs, the two things that are different with CBDCs and stablecoins is that stablecoins are issued out by a private company. Meanwhile, central banks are the ones that are issuing out a CBDC. They're both the same thing though. Stablecoins have programmability tied to them. They're trackable, they're traceable. There's no major difference between a CBDC and stablecoins. But we continue to hear this because the US government banned a CBDC, the term CBDC. But guess what they're pushing? Stablecoins. It makes no difference. But the stablecoin ROUSD and stablecoins in general actually support XRP's original use case as a neutral bridge currency because XRP can settle any two currencies in almost near instant timeframes at a fraction of a penny in a very efficient way. So the stablecoin and even CBDCs reinforce XRP's use case. Hey Nick, I watch your videos every single day. I learn a ton from them. I'm curious about what you think about LQTY. I've been buying for 6 years every dip. I have big chunks of 12 different coins. Hey, I appreciate the support, Anthony. I have yet to actually hear about LQTY. Let me take a quick look. So yeah, I've actually never looked into this project at all. The supply ratio is pretty low. The only issue that I see with this is, you know, we've seen some nice moves here. The support, I mean, we just recently hit an all-time low in April. We would need to break some of these previous highs in order to flip bullish on LQTY. But if we could start to, you know, really create bullish structure here by creating higher highs and creating higher lows, then the chart should flip pretty bullish. What happens when Brad changes the value of 1 XRP from 1 XRP to 0? He can't do that. I mean, that's probably something some Bitcoin maxi said, or, you know, who knows, but yeah, that's not possible. Welcome to the channel, Cynthia, as a supporter. I appreciate the support. Thank you for becoming a member. So let's take a quick look at some of the charts because we are at the 40-minute mark. So we only have about 20 minutes until this live stream is wrapped up, but you know, I wanted to take a quick look at XRP because if we have a 3-day candle close here, we only have about 1 day and 23 hours, okay? 1 day, 23 hours before XRP closes at the largest 3-day candle close in history. If we close officially above this $3.49 level, we will officially break out on the 3-day. Which means we will continue even higher. We will clear that $3.84 level, and we will officially be in price discovery, even going off of the glitched price, the price target on CMC. So XRP looks very good here on the 3-day. We were looking at this red zone being a problem if we started to really gain a lot of resistance here, but it seems as though XRP wants to have that continuation. We will revisit this in about 1 day, 23 hours, but XRP actually looks very, very good at this current point. But I also wanted to take a quick look at HBAR as well. So, earlier in the live stream in the beginning, what we heard about was, HBAR basically dropping. So HBAR hit higher time frame resistance here, which is why it's trying to fight this resistance level. This is that red zone that, XRP originally hit when we started to gain some momentum against these highs back in January. The problem with HBAR is that we're actually fighting higher time frame resistance going off of the the March highs. We already broke over the May highs, which we created a higher high structure compared to that high, which means HBAR is still in bullish structure, but we still need to have a 3-day candle close over like 28, almost 29 cents. So, HBAR right now, still pretty bullish. We are probably just going to range here a bit until we actually officially break over resistance. And on the 3-day, the resistance is actually around like roughly 27.5 cents. But this is the level that we need to clear going off of those March highs. So there's a question here that I just saw Nick, can you update me on Casper? Are you still expecting $3 to $6? So yeah, my price prediction on Casper has changed significantly over time simply because of the supply, right? It kind of goes with even HBAR, right? We witnessed a big inflationary release of the tokens. So with Casper, mainly I'm just looking at like 50 cents to $1 this cycle. I don't want anything too crazy, but if we do go insane on Casper, then hey, I'll be happy to see that. But I'm being pretty conservative simply because I just want to, take some profits. I want to get, my initial investment out of Casper. So I'm still kind of looking at like 50 cents to $1, just being the main target here. If I'm being extremely bullish, then like, $1.50 to $2.50 could definitely be possible. So we got a $2 super chat from Hans last. Have any thoughts and prediction on Omni Network? I haven't looked into it, but I do know that they are a big supporter of, ROUSD and of Ripple. But I'll have to do a little bit more research on them. But we just got another 5 memberships gifted to the chat. This is incredible to see. English to me, I appreciate that greatly, man. 5 gifted memberships. Waffle Fries, Jeff, Raven, Robert, and Charles now are a member of the channel. Can we get some W's in the chat real quick for English to me? I appreciate that greatly. I think this is the first time that I ever witnessed somebody gift memberships in the chat. So, hey, you just made some history there, English to me. Yeah, let's get some W's in the chat. That's awesome, man. But yeah, I definitely want to look into Omni a little bit more because I do know that Omni has some connections back to Ripple. And I know that they've been pretty bullish overall. So, I definitely have to look into it a little bit more. The chart looks pretty rough, but that's because it is a fresh launch. But yeah, I'll have to do a little bit more research on it for sure. But let's actually dive on in real quick to the XLM chart too, because I really wanted to focus on XLM a little bit more. So with XLM, we're in a similar position, with even XRP, where on the weekly, this is on the weekly, not even on the 3-day. On the weekly, we're starting to break over resistance. I'm definitely focused on this weekly candle close. We're still about like 6 days out. But I'm watching this to clear the red zone just like XRP did, because once XLM really breaks over this red zone, we're probably like, when we go back to 2021, right? I want to go off of 2021 real quick because, there's 2 targets that are the main ones when it comes to XLM once we break over those, highs from November. There's the 2021 high, and then there's the all-time high going back to 2017, 2018. And these 2 are actually very close together. XLM, the thing about XLM and XLM holders is that I feel bad for them because they got caught in the SEC lawsuit just like XRP holders did. The thing is that 2021, we probably would have created an all-time high back in 2021 if it wasn't for that SEC lawsuit for even XLM too. It also shows you the damage that the SEC actually did. But if we can clear this red zone and clear the highs back in November, we will be on a path to retesting the 2021 all-time highs. Well, the 2021 highs, sorry, which is around like 80 cents, just under the all-time highs. And then once we break this, we will target the all-time highs around like 93.5 cents. When XLM goes into price discovery, I think a lot of people will be surprised by how fast XLM can move, because even if we go off of, you know, XLM's market cap right now, right? XLM's market cap is 7.7 billion. We could easily 10x from here on XLM. Guys, that is a almost $5 XLM. And I'm going off of a $77 billion market cap because if we think about the market caps around some of these projects, right? Or sorry, the market cap for XLM is actually 14.8 billion. I apologize. I was actually looking at this wrong. I have to change these columns real quick. 1 second. Let me restart this. So with XLM, the market cap is 14.8 billion. So I do apologize for that. It would have been crazy for, you know, $7.7 billion to be, you know, the market cap. But, you know, again, a 10x on XLM could still happen. I just think that's a little bit out of reach. But I still think that with XLM, we could target some of the higher, you know, market caps of like Dogecoin from 2021, which is close to $100 billion as well. So, you know, again, that's still pretty significant for XLM. I think that there was a website, and let me find it real quick. 1 second, because I do want to I want to share with you guys something real quick that's actually very interesting, and that's comparing XLM to some of these altcoins out there like Dogecoin, for an example. And I just want to show you guys how crazy things can get. So this is Dogecoin's all-time high from 2021. Now, obviously, Dogecoin had some crazy hype behind it with Elon Musk going on, you know, mainstream media and things like that. But this is not out of reach for XLM. This would be an roughly $8 billion market cap. It would be a $2.85 XLM. Considering how big Stellar has been around tokenization, this is definitely possible. But it's also the fact that XLM is very close to breaking its all-time highs. In price discovery, it's so challenging to predict just how high an altcoin can go once in price discovery, because that's when the most violent moves happen on the chart. But also, you know, the same can be said about even, you know, XRP. With XRP, the main thing that we actually look at is just Ethereum, challenging Ethereum. You know, Ethereum's all-time high would be about $9.65 XRP. That's an upside of like 2.72x from here. This would be a market cap of like $571.6 billion. I think that this is a fair valuation for XRP, but a lot of people will say, you know, just $9.65 after, you know, holding XRP for so long and, you know, going through all this stuff. I agree with that. I think that XRP could go much higher. Even when it comes to Ethereum, right? I think a lot of people are actually overlooking how high Ethereum can actually go. Like, we think about Bitcoin right now at a $2.3 trillion market cap. That's almost a $20,000 Ethereum. Now, do I think that Ethereum is worth $2.3 trillion? It's hard to say. I think that if we go back to the historical snapshot real quick, and I just want to share with you guys this because, you know, again, it's very important to see just how close Ethereum does get to the Bitcoin market cap. So let's go back to, I think it was like November 14th, right? Yeah, it was like very close to like November 14th. Yeah, because at this time, you know, Ethereum has already kind of topped out a bit. It's like right around this time frame. So it's roughly about half of the market cap for Bitcoin. Depending on how high Bitcoin goes and where Bitcoin tops out, we should have roughly half of Bitcoin's market cap by the end of the cycle for Ethereum. If that's the case, if we look at Bitcoin having 2.3, almost $2.4 trillion in market cap, you know, Ethereum should top somewhere around like 1.2 trillion. If we're thinking about that, you know, XRP should be close to a $1 trillion market cap by the end of this cycle. So XRP could have a much larger move from even here. I mean, think about it. That's almost like a 5x. So that would align with like the $10 to $15 level on XRP by the end of the cycle. Nick, what about Casper? Do you still think $3 to $6? Love my word 7. I already answered that question. I talked about it previously. I might make a new video on Casper just to kind of address a few things around that, but I think that Casper's probably not going to hit the $3 to $6 range this cycle. Nick, what's a good wallet to use to transfer HBAR from the exchange to a cold wallet? I ran into an issue with transferring where I have to download a third-party cold wallet app to put it on. So Hashpack is pretty solid. You can actually tie Hashpack to your ledger and just transfer off of Hashpack. Hashpack is a solid wallet for Hedera. It's been around forever now. But you know, another altcoin that recently started to break out, and it was right after my video earlier today, was QNT. So QNT is at 130, almost $3. It officially broke out on the 3-week, you know, chart, and this is from that long extended overall launch pad. We just got a $10 super chat from Brunner Rasmussen. I hope that I'm saying that name correctly. What do you think about Lo-Fi on SUI? Do you think that we can do a 10x gain? Let me try to find it real quick. Lo-Fi. I believe this is it, right? Yeah, Lo-Fi. So is this what is the real value behind this? Is this like a meme coin on SUI? Do you know if this is like a meme coin on SUI? I'm not too sure. All right, so yeah, the thing is that I'm just gonna be honest with you right now. So the thing about meme coins right now is that they're not really the big thing, right? Do I think that there's still a market for meme coins? Sure, I do believe so. But I feel like the focus is now shifting. Like the good time for meme coins, I would say, is like 2021 through about like 2024. Now we're starting to see these bills getting passed through. We're starting to see a lot of focus put on these legitimate altcoins and utility and things like that. I just have a hard time getting behind meme coins at this point in the cycle. But if we're thinking about this, right, market cap wise, fully diluted value 46.4 million. The market cap is pretty low. The supply is pretty low. If we're looking at this, right, a 10x from here would be about a $500 million market cap. That's definitely possible. So to answer your question, do I think that it can do a 10x? I definitely do think so, but the risk is also there considering the fact that it is a meme coin. But I do think that the SUI network is starting to erupt. I'm actually a big supporter of SUI. A lot of people will say that, you know, SUI's kind of like, you know, Solana in a sense because, you know, it's VC backed and this and it's that. But, you know, I've been making videos on SUI and I've been putting a focus on SUI, you know, combined with like XRP and HBAR just to kind of show the strength of it. You know, we're back to that higher time frame resistance here, you know, compared to the May highs. I think that once this breaks out and retargets the 2024 highs and the 2025 highs, when SUI goes into price discovery, the entire ecosystem will wake up. So that means that Lo-Fi will also wake up in a big way and we'll probably see a lot of liquidity flow into it. So a 10x is definitely possible with Lo-Fi. But yeah, QNT. So Wood and Crypto, you said QNT, great timing on the last video. Yeah, I mean, listen, QNT has been very exciting to watch simply because it's been a very boring chart. And every single time that I see somebody say like, oh, QNT hasn't moved, it's not doing anything, it's this, that, these are the types of charts that you want to focus on because this entire price action here, where it's just sideways and it's very boring and it's very boring, it's all squeezing in this wedge so that when we do break out, the initial move is pretty boring. Like even right now, it's pretty boring. We're sitting at like $132 or so. But when this really goes, it's going to be insane to watch. That's why everyone's so excited about some of these altcoins that are up in a big way over the last couple like weeks or so. Like this last week for CFX, for an example, you know, let's go to the list real quick. Let me open up a new tab. And I just want to show you guys, like, when we look at some of these tokens, this is the 1 year, okay? Let me go and look at just 2023 into this move. Like these moves here, this is a downtrend. So we can't really say like, all right, well, this looks great. But, a lot of altcoins, I think maybe XRP would be a better example. Yeah, because like XRP has a much better looking, chart leading into those highs. So XRP is a great example because we had this like long extended sideways price action move where like nobody cared about it. Like nobody cared about XRP during this time. And then all of a sudden, boom, it just shot up. The same will happen with QNT, and it will be very violent, especially the fact that like we've been going sideways for like over 1,000 plus days. SUI is volatile? I don't think so, actually. I think that SUI is pretty boring considering the fact that, the moves here are pretty straightforward. I mean, this price action of just, sideways, and it's pretty stable, I would say. SUI's pretty stable. I mean, it hit a high of like $5.35. It hit a low of like $1.74 or so. I would say SUI is probably one of the better looking charts in this market. I mean, outside of it, like XRP. I mean, XRP's chart is just. I mean, this is just a very, very bullish looking chart. But yeah, I'm very excited to watch QNT make up for all that time. What option on SUI for utility? Bruner, what do you mean? Also, I appreciate the $5 super chat. I don't know what you mean by that question, Bruner. Do you mean in terms of like the ecosystem play? Like what projects in the SUI ecosystem are utility based? Like out of these projects in the SUI side? I mean like XRP has a utility. Oh, so you mean like what utility does SUI have itself? Onyx thoughts? Onyx is I don't know if I have looked at Onyx too much. I can't even find Onyx on here. Are we talking about Onyx coin like XCN? On SUI, which project do you think has good utility? Oh, all right. So in terms of like the actual SUI ecosystem, I think that like Cetus Protocol is actually a solid project that I've been looking at for quite some time, and it did hit a nice high, and it's now at a pretty significant low. So Cetus is pretty solid. Hans last with the $2 super chat. Did you mean XCN? All right, yeah. So again, I mean, this chart looks pretty rough, but it's in the last year, we're starting to have a nice higher low here. We just need to clear the higher, like the highs here from like April, and then we can start to really kind of build back to clearing the highs from January. But XCN looks pretty good here on this chart. But when we zoom out, there's still a lot of upside potential here for XCN. But I do think that it should have a nice move. But guys, we just passed the 1 hour mark. I'm going to wrap up this live stream. We will be live again on Wednesday. So if you guys do want to tap into the live stream, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I will be live streaming for an hour every single week going forward. But I'm going to wrap up this live stream here. It's been a great time. I want to thank everyone for all of the support, all the super chats, all of even the membership donations as well. So, thank you everyone. But with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video and even the live stream. If you guys did, definitely like, subscribe, set notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.